it was not even like I have done like 700 questions on lead code. Like if you look at my lead code profile, it is surprisingly embarrassing. I might have done 200 questions at max. But yeah, I did try to have like very good fundamentals. Like we had two courses on data structures. That is where I actually studied data structures. I did not study it on some YouTuber's course. So I was like, in that way, I was pretty old school. If you're doing lead code for doing well in interviews, right? And your performance metric for that is number of questions you solved.
Mhm.
So instead of optimizing for interview preparation, you will start optimizing for number of questions solved. That you will not stop back to really digest the solution.
Mhm.
You will not come back to it later because it does not add your count.
Mhm.
So instead of optimizing for interview prep, um, your brain is optimizing for increasing the lead code count.
Definitely,
So
yeah.
that is not so then people complain that I have like done 700 questions but I falter.
So hi everyone and welcome back on another episode of the Summer Show podcast. आज है हमारे साथ यशराज खक्कर. So Yashraj, welcome on the Summer Show episode. And yeah, so basically in this episode we are going to talk about how to apply for software developer engineer role and how to crack software developer engineer jobs and how to start your competitive programming journey, डे से कैसे start करें and how to learn any technology. So I think Yashraj is one of the best candidate to answer all these questions and resolve lots of viewers queries. So welcome again Yashraj and start करते हैं. Yashraj, can you please share your tech journey, like how your tech journey started? अभी आप कौन से कॉलेज से पास आउट हो और अभी आप क्या कर रहे हो? So yeah, a short intro about yourself.
Sure. Sure. Thanks, Samar, for having me. For the audience, so it's not the first time me and Samar are interacting. We had met once when there was something called the coding culture, which was like a collaboration between many DSCs, and that's when we had a session. So, yes, thanks again, Samar, for having me. A bit about myself. Yes, I'll keep it short. So I did not do really good in my JE, but I was fortunate enough to get into a university which is actually very good in terms of education and um, its people. So there is this place called Ahmedabad University. Pretty sure most of you would have not heard of it. Like it's younger than my younger sister. It's just like 12, 13 years old. So so yeah, but that place actually the best part was that we had good people to work with. We had good infrastructure and a very supportive system. So that kind of worked in my favor. So where it all started was perhaps in October 2018 when our seniors did a workshop on competitive programming for us, where they told us what CP is. And that when I started doing those problems, like they used to help us do them on HackerRank first. So it was at that point I realized that my programming assignments are nothing as compared to even the basic questions which we had on HackerRank. And that is what made me realize that so I did not have any intent of like going to ICPC or anything. I did not have even any idea about it. But one thing I realized for sure that if I have to grow, I would perhaps have to like do some of these problems to just strengthen my hold in programming. I did not even know at that point of time that companies ask these kind of questions.
Okay.
But that is where it started. And thankfully we had like my batch had like 5-10 people who were very enthusiastic about CP. And I am I'm a bit competitive, and I like to like learn from my peers and be at the up of my game. So they kind of pushed and inspired me to be like expert on code forces by fourth semester. That was pretty much the plateau of my journey. I stopped enjoying CP after that. So my time would be so I was looking at undergrad as a way of exploring things, at least for the first 2 to 2.5 years. So my time would go in like trying to do very good projects. So I would try to like collaborate with good people for our course projects and try to extend them to make them projects for my resume. So every project I did, I would think that this project is at this place in my resume, and that is how I would try to make it. I tried to do a research project as well, where we are still in the process of like interacting with a journal where we are like having a couple of revisions suggested. So I spent a lot of months on doing research as well. Towards the end of my undergrad, I realized the importance of hackathons. So I went to like 3-4 hackathons, won 2 or 3 of them. So that was also good for us. What apart from that? So yeah, basically I would just like try to put my hand everywhere I could. I have done a lot of things. Like I've tried to do it's not like I could become a master of anything. Perhaps backend engineering was what that really interested in me, and that's where I could get to do 3 internships. Two of them were in Goldman Sachs. Fortunately, like they gave me backend engineering work looking at my profile, so that worked out for me again. And again at Google, work is very similar to like what I wanted to do. So so backend has been my main thing. But apart from that, like I would try to genuinely do code in my coursework. So that gave me a lot of breadth. Like I have done a bit of machine learning as well. I would have tried a bit of Web3 as well in my previous hackathon. I would have basically, you talk about something in engineering, there is a chance that I would have tried to like at least do something about it, just out of like realizing what, like if this is something that interests me or not. And over time I realized, especially when I came here, where you have to understand a lot of things. If you're at a large company, mostly the product is big. Your team is related to a lot of other teams. So when I came here, I realized that my exposure to different programming languages, like I have done projects in Java, Python, C++, Golang. I that diverse area. So that actually kind of now when I made here. So because now it's very easy for me to connect the dots because of this kind of exposure. So that pretty much was my journey. Like I did not try to prepare for any particular company. It was mostly a bit of luck and some right positioning at the right time working out for me. It was not even like I have done like 700 questions on lead code. Like if you look at my lead code profile, it is surprisingly embarrassing. I might have done 200 questions at max. But yeah, I did try to have like very good fundamentals. Like we had 2 courses on data structures. That is where I actually studied data structures. I did not study it on some YouTuber's course. So I was like, in that way I was pretty old school. कि मैं classes jata tha, I would read in those classes, I would do the assignments myself. But that actually paid off a lot. And it was because my college had good assignments. It was, if it was like rote learning, it would have not helped. But yes.
Yeah, I have also seen your LinkedIn here. Your academic is also good, man. Like you are a topper in your university. Plus,
Yes.
It's kind of a roller coaster journey for you. You have tried everything. मतलब तुमने community में भी participate किया है, hackathons हो गया, CP हो गया, internships हो गई, projects हो गए. So you have tried everything. So my question is, how do you manage everything? Like मेरे को academic का भी संभालना है, plus मेरे को CP भी करनी है, मेरे को projects भी बनाने हैं. So how did you manage each and everything? क्या कुछ इशू आते थे टाइम मैनेजमेंट में, या तुमने डिसाइड किया था कि मेरे को इतना टाइम इस पे देना है, या मेरे को डेली इतने क्वेश्चंस लगाने हैं सीपी के? So yeah.
Yes. So I did those kind of boxings as you just suggested. कि but मतलब क्या होता था कि every semester I had very like different goals based on what I wanted in that semester. So there were some semesters where like CP was the priority because I really wanted to hit expert. Like it was like an innate desire I had that whenever I leave CP, I have to leave it by becoming an expert. So my 4th semester was mostly dedicated towards CP because we knew that 4th semester also has lighter coursework in my college. Mm-hmm. So, and I knew that 5th semester is extremely difficult and I will also have to look for internships.
Yeah.
And I had also started on my research project, so that will also ramp up. So I knew there was a lot coming in for me. So I would strategize by boxing things like this, that this semester I want these things out of myself. And specifically, I would try to box my academics, that I would want to complete my academic work by this point of time, and so that I have time for something else. And I also try to mix and match a lot of things. So one of our academic projects was to go to an open source operating system and do some contributions there. So my team actually did it genuinely, and that actually became a very good point which I could use for my interviews. I could put on my resume. So it kind of became my open source contribution as well as my academic work. So basically those kind of things are something you can do at the upper level, basically like structuring your things, figuring out like what do you want in what semester, and maybe like sticking to 2 or 3 things at a time. And but if you go at a micro level, since a kid I was very interested in like I always had 2 or 3 things to do at the same time. Even since I was in like 8th or 9th standard, I used to do blogging. I used to like also do ghost writing for people. I used to write articles for people. I used to participate in competitions, all while my acads were being managed. So I kind of picked up some tricks for myself, which kind of paid off in college because I was used to doing these kind of things. And also in 11th and 12th standard, I actually did not go to any coaching. I had like prepared everything by myself. So at that point of time also I was like very because I was on my own, it was a very scary journey, to be very honest. But what it kind of gave me was the habit of learning things on my own.
Yeah,
And basically
that's
making my decisions for myself. So I think those kind of things come from habits. You can perhaps like habits and self-awareness is what I would say. Like you can perhaps like do some level of optimization by really understanding how your brain understands
yeah.
and structuring your day according to that. So there is a book called A Mind for Numbers, which
And
actually teaches you how do you study math and science, and engineering is basically applied math, right?
yeah.
So I read it when I was in 11th standard, and a lot of principles still apply from that book. Then a bit of like some conventional wisdom on time management. Like I knew that I'm very functional in mornings, so mornings was when I did my practice questions for CP. Like in
Yeah.
fact, it was a pain for me to give code forces rounds at 8 p.m. because that is like the time I don't like to work. So,
Okay.
but I was well aware of all those things for myself, and but yeah, it actually came with some effort as well. Like I did not really enjoy a lot of my weekends, particularly in my first 2 years, and then I realized that college life is also something you should enjoy. So that is something I also did wrong, but yeah, it paid off. So I'm not sure if I could like concretely answer because there is no magic ingredient or anything, but it is just very very thoughtful preparation and elaboration for yourself. And if you can, like, this is something I did not do a lot, but I was still blessed to have good seniors. Like you should take a lot of guidance so
Yep.
that you don't have wasted effort.
And long story short, you are now as a SD in Google. So yeah, everything is paid off. मतलब जो भी आपने preparation की थी, everything is utilized. Yep, definitely.
Yes, it's kind of funny how I did not aim for, like, I did not even think I'll be eligible for like even getting 2 rounds ahead in Google, because I did not really consider myself like that witty. Like I was not like a candidate master on code forces or something, which people say that you have to do like very much CP for being here. But over time you'll realize that like problem solving and doing well in interviews is like much more than that.
Okay, let me ask the question कि हाँ, how did you get into the Google? जैसे कि after Goldman Sachs आपका internship लग गया था, फिर PPO भी मिल गया था as a मतलब as a SD intern Goldman Sachs में. फिर what is the process of applying to Google? Are you applying directly off campus या on campus था, or you get some referral from any senior? So what is the process for your Google job, getting a Google job?
Okay. So right. So they did not come to my campus, like neither GS nor Google. So what I did was I had applied back in August 2021, when the opening for 2022 grads came out. I just applied and forgot about it because I was not even expecting anything will happen out of this, because I fondly remember I had miserably done like I had done very bad when I was shortlisted for the intern role last year, and that had kind of like killed my confidence that this place perhaps not right now. This is not going to happen. And I already had my GS PPO and I really loved my team. Like the place I was at, it was amazing, and I was mentally prepared to go to GS, that this is where I want to spend like at least a first few years of my career. And what happened was that before my internship started, the second one, the 6-month internship I did with them after the PPO, I got a call from a recruiter that hey, I liked your LinkedIn profile, would you like to interview for us? So I was like, sure.
On which platform you get a message from recruiter?
I got a phone call.
A phone call, okay.
Yeah, so I'm not sure where she got it from the internal database or from my resume. I have no idea, but I got a call, and we had a chat, and like I agreed to the interviews just for thinking that it will be an experience.
Yep.
I was pretty sure I'll not make it because I was very rusty with my DSA. The last time I had done DSA was to prepare for the summer internship. After that, that happened like in November 2020. Then I did my internship in June 2021. Got the PPO in July. I had not done any DSA after, like in entire 2021 I had done no DSA. Like I was just genuinely following what I wanted to do. I would follow my interest, and DSA, like I felt like I don't want to like grind lead code. Like that is something I did not feel I want to do. But I had like maybe what perhaps paid off in the interviews was my previous experience in CP, which thankfully like I had my fundamentals sorted. It did not take a lot of time to prepare. I was still taking it slow. I had requested I will give only 1 round every week.
Okay.
because I was already managing my internship in parallel, right?
Yeah.
So early morning I would give an interview, then work for the whole day, then prepare for coding rounds at night. This was my schedule for 1 month, and it kind of worked out. The feedback was good, and like Google has a very interesting process. Like it's amazing. The way they do things is amazing. Interviews focus on a lot of things. So I got a lot of guidance from people who are in Google. So I had a referral from my senior who is in Google right now, 1 year senior. So he guided me. He took one mock for me. There was another friend who was in Google Munich. He took a mock for me. There was a friend who was kind enough to take 4 mocks for me. So I gave like 6 to 8 mocks. So, and those kind of helped a lot. And this is something I even wrote a post about on LinkedIn when I announced my Google thing, right? That mocks perhaps changed the game for me. That they made me really smooth with the interviews, which is also helpful, right? Because when you do a problem on code forces or lead code, you are used to thinking in your head, maybe drawing and scribbling some things. Now when you're giving an interview, at least at Google, you are expected to think out loud, that you have to explain your whole process to the interviewer. You have to explain your thought process, and the solutions will not be trivial, right? I don't think there was any question where the solution was instant and you just had to explain. That does not happen. So you have to talk to the interviewer. Sometimes they give you hints, but even for him to give you a hint, or to not, like one interviewer, for example, I was going in a very different direction, which was also a solution to the problem, but the interviewer wanted a different kind of solution which would fit in the interview. So he drove me to that direction. So those kind of things will happen when you explain your process out loud. Like, this is what I'm trying to think, this is what I think. So you have to give them pointers to evaluate you, right? Like, you have to ask questions, you have to communicate your thoughts, and perhaps you have to discuss also on code. Like, you have an interactive coding editor, so that's where you can discuss so that they can understand. So it's a very different mentality there. So it needs some practice, and maybe that is why, like, people who do like even a lot of questions are not able to, maybe I'm just guessing that this might be one differentiating factor.
Yep, definitely.
And this was like, the process was standard. 1 phone screen, 3 on-sites is the typical current standard right now. A couple of rounds have googliness and leadership component, which is also something you should prepare for. It kind of assesses how googly you are. It can mean how culturally fit you are, or googliness is actually also defined. You can look it up. Like, there are 4 aspects to googliness, something like that. So they check if you fit in those aspects. I forgot the exact words, but it's on the line of ownership, responsibility, things like that. So that, and yeah, basically their process is very aligned, smooth. You get a response very quickly, and the recruiter always is with you to support you. So it's kind of smooth that way. You just have to focus on the prep, and a bit of luck that you have to get an interview, because that perhaps is the hardest part.
Definitely. So basically, how many rounds you have faced for the Google? 3 or 4 rounds? Yeah.
1 phone screen, 3 on-sites.
Okay.
That is a standard.
And what are the standard for the DSA questions? Are they medium level or hard or easy?
Definitely not easy, but it's kind of medium hard. Perhaps not those very hard lead code questions
have you seen these questions before, or it's new for you? Questions
I don't think I saw any question. Like, to be very honest, I'm not a person who has practiced like the entire lead code, right? So when I had my time, like the 1 month where I was preparing and giving rounds, in that 1 month I did more than 100 questions. So at that point, and before that I might have, like, in CP I had done a good number of questions, but in lead code before that I had not touched lead code much. So I had to like mainly work on those parts which are not there in CP but there in DSA, right? Like, you will not find linked list questions, for example. So those are the kind of things I had to work on more. Like, graphs and those kind of things came easier because CF has harder questions for graphs and things like that. So it was kind of that, but like, even if that problem was on lead code, the chances are I might have not solved it, because I did not have that much time to ramp up on my prep. So, but yeah, I think the questions were like, at least they were not exactly like one question was very unique. Maybe I don't know where the interview prepared it or something, but 1 or 2 questions were like some variation of what you do on lead code, but not sure if you can find the exact question. I like, it's very easy to like slightly tweak a question, right? So exact matches are hard, but yeah, like if you do your practice well, I don't really see anything exceptional, which like you definitely don't need to do a lot of CP.
Okay.
That is what I feel.
Or the recruiter asks you question regarding your resume, or they just directly ask the DSA questions only, like resume or your projects? Are they ask question related to your projects or
No,
prior
no, no,
experience?
no,
Okay, they
no,
judge you
no.
on the
They won't.
DSA
Like,
basis.
so yeah, problem solving and the thing I talked about, right? Googliness and leadership. So that is where you can bring points from your resume, but they are not going to open your resume in the interview.
Okay.
So they might do it when they sit for evaluating you. I think I've heard that they do. I'm like, this is, don't take it as official information. Even I don't know what happens in the you might have heard of something called the hiring committee, which sits to evaluate candidate packets. Packets are basically collections of feedbacks from interviewers. Like, this is all public information. You can look it up. There is a very, Google themselves maintain some resource which is called preparing for interviews at Google. So that is where they tell you a lot about these things, and it's actually worth reading if you get a chance to interview them, because it tells you a lot about the process. There is also this book called Cracking the Coding Interview, right?
Yep.
It is written by someone who's an ex-Googler. She was in the hiring committee, some very senior person. I forgot her designation, but it also explains a lot about this process. So that is also like worth checking out if you're interested, or if you get an opportunity.
Yeah, that's nice. Also, can you please share your life at Google Key? How is the life? What are the facilities they are providing to you? And work-life balance,
Okay.
kaisa hai? Are they providing you lots of work? Yeah, you can manage your time. So, can you share some work-life culture on a day-to-day
Sure.
basis? Yep.
So it's been like 6 or 7 weeks since I'm here. So
Okay.
obviously, like, work-life balance is more on the life side, because when you come, they expect you to ramp up at your own pace. They don't really force you to like work hard from your day one.
Okay.
The orientation itself is like a lot of fun. It's all about games and food and chilling out. Then you have their tech immersion, which is where you like learn about Google's tech culture and like build a small project with a team. So after that, you ramp up with your work. So it's like I see like it's hard to judge the whole log from my team alone, but the work-life balance seems good for everyone. Like, I don't see people stressed or um, exhausted as such. So people are having healthy balance, and I see people very motivated also, and they strive to have a balance. Like I know like senior engineers in my team, they go and play foosball regularly. They have their own foosball league going on, and they are like very very good at foosball, table tennis, pool, everything, because like, those are the games which are here, right? So they are like, some of them are like people with more than 10 years of experience, and they are like, they also make time for foosball. So it's kind of good. About the perks, like, I'm in the Hyderabad office. I think Bangalore and Hyderabad pretty much have the same perks. Like, you have a gym on site, you have game rooms, you have free food. Obviously, people would have heard of that. Free food 4 times a day. It's good. Actually, it's very good. Apart from that, yeah, the regular employee perks, which pretty much every good company gives, like related to insurance, employee well-being, and those kind of things are obviously there. Uh, that's the boring stuff. In the fun stuff, uh, yeah, like pretty much standard stuff, right? Like, pretty much every good company gives that these days. Like, you get a good device to work on, good accessories to work on, swags, um, and yeah, like, you are encouraged to have fun. Like, the events are very good. The culture is very open. You can talk to anyone about anything. They Everything is also very open. Like, there is no like they put a lot of trust on Googlers, that people will do things the right way. So everything is like, you will not find a culture of closeness or anything. You can check out another team's code also if you want to. Like, pretty much most of the code is open. It's not restricted. There is a lot of internal technology which you have to learn, but yeah, it is also very good. Like, it is not like it is internal, so it is going to be bad. It's actually excellent, and there is a lot to learn. Like, it's almost like a university, is how one of my senior colleagues puts it, that there is so much documentation, best practices, concepts, papers written by Googlers. It's kind of a university in itself, where you can actually learn a lot, and that is something which makes me the most happy, because I was looking forward to having something like this for my career, where there is a structured path for learning and like growing. So that is something I really liked. Apart from that, yeah, I think like that, then you have the pretty standard stuff. Like I think most good companies in India, even the startups, like give you good perks. But this is perhaps like these 3-4 things are what Google, like they like this these 3-4 things is what makes Google stand out.
Yeah, man, that's great. And one more question: are you still doing competitive programming, or you left it after joining Google?
So no, I left CP in 4th semester itself. I did not
Achha.
wait for even getting an internship. It is done and dusted for me, and nothing wrong with CP as such. Like there are people who are genuinely interested, but what I realized was that I had a larger curiosity for understanding computer science itself.
Okay.
Like I wanted to really learn a lot of other things, and CP was becoming a hurdle. That to sustain your level at CP, you have to practice, and once you reach expert on code forces is where the real game starts. This is when things become very challenging. You actually have to genuinely, like that is the reason why a lot of people are stuck at expert level. Like expert to CM is a very large jump. From in terms of rating also, it's a 300-point gap, and conceptually also it's a very large gap. Like you have to actually understand a lot of data structures, a lot of fancy concepts, which probably are not really relevant outside. Like of course there is the CP versus dev debate which will remain always. Like CP people will say advantages of CP also, which are right in their own way, but my calculation was pretty simple. Like what is the best use of my time right now? It was not CP, and that's why I left CP, and then I never came back to it. Like this was a decision made by the 4th semester version of me who did not have a lot of exposure, right? Like now you have a lot of YouTubers giving gyan. We did not even have a lot of seniors who are like very pro, right? There are like 3-4 people in every batch we could look up to. So my source of gyan was also limited. Maybe in this current culture I might have not left, but at that point, like to whatever I understood, it felt like a rational decision ki it's time to like let it go and perhaps do something else.
Definitely. Also, when I started my college journey, I have started कि हाँ मेरे को पहले डेवलपमेंट में स्टार्ट करना है. मतलब मेरे को पहले सीपी करना ही नहीं था. मतलब लगा ही नहीं मेरे को. But after graduating, when I apply for some roles, they ask me question related to DSA. So at that point, I stuck कि हाँ काश मैं प्रिपरेशन कर लेता मैं अपनी career की जर्नी में. So because I've also given interviews for the D Shaw, and they ask me some problem solving questions, but I'm unable to solve it. Then after that I realized कि हाँ मतलब ना करके भी तुम्हें करना ही पड़ेगा DSA. मतलब प्रिपरेशन तो करनी ही होगी. So I started my DSA journey again, which I don't want to because my path is on development. But then I started the data structure and algorithm. So yeah. So my next question is how a student can start develop data structure and algorithm, how they can prepare for competitive programming or for starting their programming journey to ace the interviews like Google, Microsoft, or any kind of companies.
So if your end goal is just to clear interviews, perhaps you should not waste a lot of, like not waste, but like spend a lot of time in CP, because especially if you don't have a lot of time. From again, it's a generalization. There are companies like Code Nation, for example, which ask notoriously difficult questions, which you cannot do without having CP experience. There are maybe other companies also, like Direct. I would openly ask you that please apply only if you have done CP. I've seen a form where they say that if you are doing CP, please only then apply.
Yep.
So there will be those kind of companies. But in general, if you are not very interested in CP, if you're interested, of course, like that's a very different story. But if you think you don't want to do CP, it's probably okay to skip it and rather focus on really understanding the concepts well.
Okay.
For data structures and algorithms, by not focusing on the number of questions, but rather how fast are you able to solve a random, medium, or hard question. Okay. A popular one, like don't really do like try to do popular questions on lead code. There is a video by Kunal Kushwaha on how to do lead code effectively.
Okay.
Like I'm not endorsing him or going against him. Not like
he goes against everyone.
Controversies.
Yep, he goes against everyone.
Yeah, like I'm not really involved in those controversies, but I think that video is good. Like, I think it summarizes it very well. How to do lead code. That is something which people should know, and
Yeah,
that is perhaps like very important.
I will
Yeah,
share that
and
link so that everyone can go to check.
yeah, and do follow something which suits you for theory. Don't do CLRS if your context is just interview prep. It has a lot of math stuff, but like if your purpose is just interview prep, maybe some playlist of a YouTuber or some online course would work. I would still suggest like having some good understanding from a mathematical point of view as well. So maybe some MOOC course. I had done MIT's course on algorithms.
Okay.
When did I do it? I think I did it in my second or third semester. First year vacation or third semester. I'm not exactly remembering, but when I looked at it, I was odd, and it helped me a lot. Like the fundamental, it gave me the fundamentals. So you can consider that, or there is a course by Stanford also. There is a course by Princeton also. There's a ton of courses. You basically find what material works for you, but the goal should be to really understand. You should not just know key. So the goal is also to have some context behind the data structures you learn. So you should not just say ki DFS is like yeah, there is a bunch of recursive, like there's a recursive call here, this is how it works, and that's it. Like 4 line का code है, समझ में आ गया. Perhaps you should have some context on why, like you should think naturally. Like why, if I had a graph, how would I traverse it? Perhaps especially if I could not, like if you are looking at a graph on pen paper, you can see the whole graph. But if you think as a computer, if I had to traverse the whole graph in the best possible way, there are like 2 strategies you can think of naturally. That one is that you go as far as possible, then come back 1 step, then go as far as possible, come back 1 step. That way, that intuitively is depth first search. Or you can like I find everything that is near to me, then I hold on to that, then find everything else that I can find, hold on to that. That is breadth first search. So if you try to like build your intuition around things, understand them really well. Why is the time complexity of depth first search this? Why is the space complexity this? How is Dijkstra related to breadth first search? Like why is breadth first search a specialization of Dijkstra? Or why is Bellman the way it is? Like those kind of things, if you understand really well, for DP, for example, like if you really understand recursion, that how can I break this problem to its sub problems? What is the base case? How can I, like then you check the tree, and basically, so you should have proper sound fundamentals placed in your head about you should not memorize questions. You should like you can pick patterns. There are some questions where you have to pick patterns. Like there is a concept of monotonic queue, for example. I don't think anyone can invent it in an interview. So if you would have done enough questions to encounter monotonic queues, that is when you can perhaps like, but even in that, like if you just have done like 2-3 questions on monotonic queues, and in the interview you see a slightly different variation of that, unless your concepts are clear, you would not be able to fit that in a 45-minute interview. Okay. So I think that is also like very important. If you understand longest increasing subsequence, and if I give you a small variation of that and you are not able to do it, it probably means that you did not understand the previous one well enough. You memorized it. You did not know you memorized it, but you memorized it. Okay.
So you mean instead of doing lots of question of a common topic, you should have an in-depth knowledge about the basic concept of that particular.
Yes. Like don't focus. Like what happens is like people make the number of questions their metric. So there is some law. I forgot about the name of the law, but basically that law tries to say that suppose if you want to if you're doing lead code for doing well in interviews, right? And your performance metric for that is number of questions you solved. So instead of optimizing for interview preparation, you will start optimizing for number of questions solved. That you will not stop back to really digest the solution. You will not come back to it later because it does not add your count. So instead of optimizing for interview prep, your brain is optimizing for increasing the lead code count.
Definitely,
So
yeah.
that is not so then people complain that I have like done 700 questions but I falter.
Yeah.
So that is I forgot that, I think Gantt heart law or something. I read about it somewhere and I was like blown. Okay, this is what it is. That like, this is exactly like people memorizing previous year questions for exams, to because their objective is to crack the exam and not to learn.
Yeah.
So that is kind of something you should be wary of, because it mostly does not work,
So
at least in coding interviews.
So what is the best way to learn any concept? Should we watch videos, or should we try a lot of research about that particular topic, or any kind of strategy or framework you can share about from your experience to how to solve any question related to that topic?
So in general, if you're learning something, in general reading is faster than watching, but there are some people who like videos. So learning style, whatever works for you, but if you want to do it fast, reading is always faster. Like reading and trying to understand, genuinely spending time with pen and paper to visualize, look at the thing from various angles. This is where a lot of ideas from Mind for Numbers, the book I talked about, comes into help. Like you have to spaced repeat things, you have to look at it from different angles, you have to try to find problems which try to test your concepts through different lenses. Like if you are practicing graph problems, don't just do simple DFS BFS problems all the time. Try to look at problems where you have to do multi-source BFS. Like multi-source BFS is not a concept that you should learn from a YouTube video. Like if you are like I mean these are the kind of things like you can also pick up by trying to think through, do problems. So if you have clarity, you will kind of invent small things on your own only. So you don't really have to clog your brain with a lot of ideas, but rather stick your ground to a few things that work,
Okay.
and then like basically sit on that. Like if you understand traversals really well, for example for trees, binary trees or any tree, you can pretty much solve tree problems. Like they are not that difficult.
Generally क्या होता है कि lots of students they directly see the questions, they spend 5 to 10 minutes कि हाँ how solving the question, but they don't go to that brute force या optimized solution. So they directly jump to the editorial part of that question, or they directly jump to the YouTube video to get to know the solution. So what is the best way to approach a question, and कितना time देना चाहिए हमें एक question को solve करने के लिए, so that we can understand that question very properly. कि मान लो कि अगले हफ्ते भी वो question है तो I can easily solve it.
So the first thing I think we should take care of is to be very careful about the questions we pick. That you should pick questions which are like there is a very beautiful blog on Code Forces which explains this analogy that you should solve problems you are just like which are like just above your level. That it's a small step for you to solve that, and you get something out of that question. It prepares you to do harder questions. Like in general, it's difficult to find questions like that yourself, and that is where sheets and those kind of things come to help. Or if you have some background in DSA already, from your college or some course or whatever, then also you have some natural sense that this is how you want to approach questions. So once you have that fixed, and of course, like even if you do that, sometimes it will not work, which is okay. Sometimes there will be like questions with completely new concepts. So it is also okay if you see a question which makes no sense to you. That is also fine. But in general, try to find good questions. Then the approach is pretty standard in my opinion. That you first look at the hint. If it does not work out, I think you should give like 10 to 15 minutes of genuine effort. After that, I think it's worth it. Like you can, like if you can also give one day to the whole problem, but you also have a life and you also have other things to do. So I think, and also like you have to train yourself for interviews where you will get 10-15 minutes to come up with a solution. So it's good if you can, at least like if you have some direction, it's okay if you continue thinking. But if you have no clue after 10-15 minutes, it's perhaps better to at least look at the hint, then think, look at the second hint if it is there, then think. Even if that does not work out, editorial or discuss section, you can just take a glance to, if you find a keyword that if suppose you see DP written in the editorial, then you stop, go back, try to think that if I know that it's a DP question, would I be able to solve it? And maybe you will find out as a problem inside it, and then you'll be able to solve it. Even if that does not work out, go read the tutorial again. then try to implement the solution. Even if that does not work out, look at the code. This perhaps is the order you should follow, assuming you have proper time left to prepare.
Yeah, that's a
And
good
then other, like, one thing you have to keep, like, how to think for problems. It's kind of hard to like give advice on that, but there are some simple things which people fail to like look at. Like, you should distill the problem first from the story, if there is a story, on exactly what the problem is asking for. You should properly look at the time and the space constraints and the memory constraints. Like, how large is your input, what time is expected. Then that gives you a rough estimation of the time complexity required to solve the problem. That itself gives you hints to solve the problem. Like, if the time complexity, for example, is strictly logarithmic, then you know that you have to do some divide and conquer. Otherwise, there is no solution to the problem. So those kind of caveats help a lot. If you know that it's polynomial time and the brute force solution is exponential, then it is highly likely that you'll be able to either optimize the brute force solution through some greedy logic, or you might be able to see some patterns in it which would give a DP solution, or you can construct a graph out of it and it is some traversal problem. So those kind of mental models would be stronger as you practice more and more, but you should really try to look at the problem from a lot of lenses. Even if one more advice which worked out for me was to do some examples. Like, if try to solve some questions, some inputs yourself. This is applicable for a certain class of question. Maybe there's some string generation problem. You are given two numbers, based on that you have to output the number of strings, or you have to generate a string through some logic. So you try to like do it on pen paper yourself, and that itself sometimes gives you the solutions. That, hey, if my had to solve it like this, and perhaps I would can prepare a solution like this. So these are the some mental models which you can try to build for yourself, and these are the models which come up when you genuinely want to learn DSA, that you are in it for really understanding what is going on and accepting that you will be able to take things at your pace. That there will be people who would be very good at reasoning and deductions, maybe because they were very good about these things in school, they were very good at Olympiads, or they have a very good math background. So everyone comes with their own set of strengths and weaknesses. Some people are able to code things very fast. For some people, some complex math topics come very naturally because they were good at it. Everyone also has their strong and weak areas. Like, graphs came very naturally to me for some reasons. And I know people who found graphs very difficult. And I was like, bro, what is difficult in this? But at the same time, they had their own strengths. Like, I took a lot of time to understand DP. Like, recursive thinking was something I did not develop properly for a lot of me. I was afraid of it until I really sat and broke it down and genuinely did, like, there was some n queens backtracking or some other backtracking problems where I would take 1.5 hour to solve one backtracking problem, but I had to do it. I had, like, because I had to learn it. So now it is very comfortable. So that was my weak part. But graphs came like very, very naturally. Like, I could do hard questions also very easily. So everyone has their own game. So you have to understand what your game is and basically, like, do the best you can given your cards, like your time left, your aspirations, your ability, things like that.
Yep, definitely. And there are lots of bhaiyas and didis who share their DSA sheets. Do you prefer कि हाँ इतने sets of question कर लोगे तो तुम्हें थोड़ा idea हो जाएगा how to tackle the interview, or because lead code में there are lots of questions, tons of questions, like 1,000 plus, and you have very less amount of time to prepare for your interview. So how a person can filter कि which set of questions should I focus, because interview में तो हमें पता नहीं कि कौन सा topic का question पूछ सकते हैं, whether if you are good at any certain topic, how you can मतलब analyze या how you can strategize कि हाँ मेरे को क्या process use करना है to solve या to do lots of questions on DP या any other topic.
So if you are just starting out, it dips. So if you have a lot of time to prepare, you are in second year or whatever, then you should take your time and do, like, maybe follow a sheet very rigorously. Like, I'm not advocating or disadvocating use of sheets, but one advantage of using sheets is that you do standard problems. The reason why classical problems are good is because they are the building blocks of a lot of problems. People know about those problems, and they were called classical because they help you enforce a concept. So instead of doing some quirky DB problems, it is better you start learning DP using the standard problems because they build up your foundation. That is where it is very important. If you have less time left, your first focus should be to get breadth first. That for every topic you should understand the basic concepts really well. Because suppose if the interviewer is is not going to ask you a very difficult question. Suppose it's a simple tree traversal question, but you're not prepared trees, but you are like pro at graphs and DP. So still you will not do well, right? Because you did not prepare for trees. So first priority is breadth. After that, the standard problems, and then it depends on your level of understanding and confidence. You will realize how much practice you need by seeing how quickly are you able to solve an unknown problem. So there will be some questions which will be quirky, which you cannot just get, or maybe they don't come to you. That happens to everyone. But in general, if you know that you are able to do 3 or 4 out of 5 medium problems very quickly, it means that you should maybe now you're in good shape. Maybe you should try approaching hard problems. But if you ask me how do you know you're prepared, it's probably not possible to determine. And perhaps the best strategy is to have a routine where you do some problems every day. You can still judge yourself through mocks, but again, like since every company has a very different hiring bar, it is very difficult for you to judge. And even in companies there is some randomness involved, right? Like at least big companies have standardized processes which aims to reduce this bias by a lot. But especially if you go to a startup where they don't have some processes yet, interviewer can ask anything they want to ask. They will actually ask anything they want to ask. So as much as unfair you might complain about it to be, this is how it is. So interviews are anyways also a lot about luck, no matter how fair the process becomes. So your best bet is to be at your best shape. Prioritize things that way. It's not you should know some OSC and DBMS OP concepts also, because they don't take a lot of time to prepare if you really think about it, and they can give you bonus points, or some interviews will actually expect you to be having some familiarity with those. So if I had to start my prep again, I would focus on so there is this Pareto principle, right? Like 80% of returns come from 20% of things. I would try to find my 20%, that having a firm grasp of fundamentals. I would not focus on segmentaries right now, because I know like very few people are going to ask segmentaries, and it is not even expected. You should also not be like, hey, you don't know segmentaries. Like nobody's going to tell you that. But hey, you don't know post-order traversal. That is dumb. So focus is always on getting the maximum returns. That is how it should be.
Okay. Yeah, that's a great advice. And now coding wala part khatam, matlab day se jump on to the development part. How a student can learn in technology, because there are lots of technology out there. Blockchain hai, web development hai, Android hai. तो how a student can choose कि उसको कौन से टेक में जाना है, या we should explore everything by spending some amount of time कि एक महीना इस टेक को दे दिया, दूसरे महीना इस टेक्नोलॉजी को सीखने में लगा दिया. So what is the best approach to learn any technology and then build some projects on that technology?
Okay, so you should perhaps start with what is your why. That if you're looking for a job, if your motivation to do dev is to get a job as fast as possible, perhaps it makes more sense to either pick web dev or Android dev and give it your all, because that's where the market is. Perhaps web dev more than anything else. Pick a tech stack, do the tutorials, and then try to escape the tutorial hell by actually trying to find good work. Now this is difficult, and this is something I've struggled with myself a lot, because as a student, DSA has a very structured path. There is a whole industry built on that. Like people have like people have built a lot of things to help you prepare well, right? You will not find anything like that for development. Like there are maybe a couple of companies trying to do something, but their scope is also limited. So that's where dev gets harder. You have to also spend time to get exposure. Suppose if you did some tutorial on Django, where Django Girls is a popular tutorial, you built a blog application. Now what? You might build another application which would use similar, maybe up to 3 more features. But how would you know that there is something called JWT authentication, which is the web standard for JSON Web Tokens, basically? Or how would you know that what are APIs? What is GraphQL, which is a new buzzword in the industry? Or how do backend systems scale? What are NoSQL databases? How will you come across these concepts? With that becomes difficult. So you kind of pick those things by either you find a good roadmap. So there's a website which I discovered very late in my life. It's called roadmaps.sh. It has very good roadmaps for most career paths. So you can pick on something like that, or you can find Mozilla Web Docs also has good learning paths. But in general it is difficult because so you can kind of still get over it by finding internships where you actually work on industry problems. That's where you experience how code should be written. You learn things really fast. You can also pick on things by having good friends who are doing interesting stuff, build projects with them, do open source. Open source is a great teacher. But yeah, it's going to be not structured like DSC. You'll have to do a lot of back and forth. There'll be multiple concepts applying at the same time. It is possible that you have to use something related to what is taught. Like, there is some concurrency problem which happens in what you're trying to do, and you're not good at multi-threading. So you have to go back and understand what threads are. You might run into some network related problem. So you have to go back on that. You might have to pick up some concepts from distributed systems if you're building something related to that. You don't know what a message queue is. You go back. So basically, you might have to pick up some concepts from DBMS if there is a bottleneck in your system. So it's vast, it's complex, but what one thing you have to keep in mind is like perhaps it is also like, so I think it's advisable to have some kind of dev experience before you move into the industry, so that you get a flavor of what it is like. You will have some confidence when you enter a company for the first time, even if they did not ask it in their interviews, but like it would be extremely helpful. Like you will ramp up faster, and that is also helpful, right? Like your first 3-4 months are where you are judged in a way that how fast are you able to pick things, and as much smart as you are, like you still, like there is some role of experience which exists. Like if you have no idea about operating systems or some basic concepts, you will struggle. You don't even know what an API is, so you will struggle. You will obviously struggle. You will feel overwhelmed, especially if you are going to a organization which has a mature product, because there will be a lot of existing code, and you are not used to reading large pieces of code because you have not done dev ever. Like you have just read 100 lines of code which you read for CP, so you are not used to navigating code bases. Like if you open 4 files, your brain is already fried. So those kind of things have happened to people. They've happened to me as well. So that's where experience helps, and perhaps that is what you should focus on, like getting some mature work done, some impactful work done, which is solving a good problem. Like more than the problem, if your focus is just learning, then doing something like which is technically difficult to do is perhaps what you should try to look for. Like don't just keep making CRUD APIs in 5 languages.
Yeah, that's a great advice. And yeah, definitely participate in hackathon, because hackathon maybe you can learn lots of different technologies while building projects.
Yes, hacks are a way to get breadth, but for depth, most likely hacks will not help you, because you will not have the time and the patience most likely to really understand how something works under the hood. But yes, that's its own skill, and maybe you should try if it works for you. But yeah, like people do pick up small new things.
Yeah, and on the interview point of view, because in some interview round they ask about the projects कि आपने कौन से projects पे work किया है. तो अगर development अगर तुम्हें आती है तो they will definitely help you to explain projects, क्या तुमने technology use की.
Yes.
वो सब कोड लिखा है तो
Yes, I think projects are a competitive advantage because सबके projects मतलब even when people come to me to ask for referrals, everyone has like very similar projects कि mean stack month stack पे कुछ होगा कि ये बनाया था, ये React पे चल रहा है, पीछे नोड है और यहाँ से क्रिएट हो रहा है, यहाँ से रीड हो रहा है. मशीन लर्निंग में भी मतलब it is mostly like not very unconventional stuff that you will find that people have done. So if you have good projects, they stand out. Like it was not like my projects were like very difficult or something, but my projects were like genuinely created by me on my own ideas with my own strengths. So I always had a like I have used projects as a big leverage in many interviews that I've given. Yeah, because काफी इंटरेस्टिंग होते थे, ऐसे इंटरनेट पे मोस्टली होते नहीं है. so उसकी वजह से भी काफी you will get an advantage.
Can you give a brief about some of your projects so that student get an idea कि किस type के project बनाने चाहिए? You know, 1 or 2 line about your project.
So one thing which we did was we took MIT's course on distributed systems, and we did their part of labs where they were building Raft. So that is something which I always talk about. Like once I made it in 7th semester. It's a mature project. It takes a lot of fundamentals, but whenever it helped me in my rounds. I would talk about one machine learning project which we made was also it was not like something ripped off from Kaggle. Like we took a data set which was not like it was recently launched. It was a Spotify data set, and then we actually sat with a hands-on machine learning book, actually read the whole book pretty much while completing the project, and then we picked a bunch of techniques. We picked a bunch of libraries on ourselves. Like we basically went out on a journey to learn machine learning, and that's when we tried a lot of algorithms, did a lot of things, got something to work, picked up some 2-3 fancy things on the way, and it was an end-to-end machine learning project where everything was there. So that also helped. There was a song popularity prediction. That was this project. There was a project where we had used some signal processing techniques to recognize a song from a part of the song, like Shazam. So those kind of people don't really think of making those kind of projects, right? So they stand out. Like that was still not very complex. I had made it in my 3rd semester for a signals course, but I kept it when I was in my 2nd year. Then made better projects and replaced it. There was one project which really stood out. We had made a tweet analyzer for COVID-19 tweets. So we scraped off Twitter data for COVID-19 tweets and then used DBMS concepts, constructed a database, and then a basic front end to show that. But since it was very relatable and not many people had done it, it kind of stood out. And we would try to deploy most of things as much as possible. Code would be clean and properly there, and it would be created by us. So it was not like people copied from us. Like we did not copy from anyone.
Yeah, because the interview directly know कि हाँ अगर copy किया है कि नहीं, because there are lots of students that directly see the videos and project बनाते हैं, they copy paste the same code. Then it's quite difficult to explain it during the interview process. But if you genuinely working on that particular project, like you shared कि you have read lots of books about machine learning and you have tried lots of algorithms, so you genuinely able to explain कि क्या क्या तुमने really build किया है कि नहीं. It's easier to explain them. It's not just copy paste.
Exactly that. Like Netflix clone तो बहुत सारे हैं. Instagram clone, Netflix clone, you might have seen that. So it's good to be in off campus. The game is to stand out. Like standing out is half of the game. So just do whatever you can to do that.
So Yashraj, thank you so much for the time देने के लिए, and I believe this episode will definitely help lots of students to get to a product-based company or help them in their career, in the tech career. And any final piece of advice to the budding student who wants to crack company like Google or any kind of software companies, any kind of suggestion or feedback from
I'm not sure if there is one piece of advice that works, but yeah, if product-based companies is the goal, you have to take care of 2 things, right? One is to be really good at interviews, which would be a byproduct of the DSA prep, mocks, communication, a combination of a lot of things, and getting feedback from those mocks. And one part is to get an interview. So that would require something else which makes you stand out, like maybe CP, which would like maybe like you'll do well in Kickstart or Hacker Cup. Your ranks will attract interviews, or your open source contributions will attract interviews, or your college tag itself will attract interviews. It can be any of that, but
I'm
that is
talking
one part
about
of the problem.
I'm talking about tier 3 college students. Yeah.
Okay, right. So in that case, it's what you do in your 4 years, right? Apart from so to get an interview, you'll probably have to do something other than lead code. Like you might have to stand out to attract an interview, or you might have to do well in those online assessments, which might ask harder questions,
Okay.
and also questions related to other CS concepts,
Okay.
or even aptitude. Like GS takes an aptitude test first, right? And a lot of people are not able to clear the aptitude. So those are the kind of, like, you will need something else apart from interview skills to stand out, to get an opportunity. Or maybe you are just like, yeah, people do all kind of, you might have seen someone making a video on cred which went viral on LinkedIn.
Yep.
He wanted a design role at cred, he got that role. So those kind of wacky things is also something which people do, that works well for smaller companies, but you need something to get that call. Or you might also want to specialize. That I know a friend who was specializing in infra related roles, so he found it easier to get interviews because he had a specialization, he had some work in that specialization. So he would directly get a call from a recruiter by asking them. So basically you need something like on that, and you need the ability to clear the round once you get a call. So these two are sometimes not related. So but once you have these in place, and maybe 10% of luck, who knows, like, you would be at a great place.
So yeah, thank you again, Yashraj, for being in the podcast episode. Going to next time भी हम एक podcast episode करें after some while. So yeah, I will share the
Sure.
LinkedIn profile so that if anybody interested to connect with you, then he can connect with on LinkedIn. So yeah, thank you again, Yashraj, and see you.
Thank you so much.
Podcast.
Yep.
Okay, bye.